Well, Anna, delighted to be chatting with you. Joan with Steve Evans here.
Hi, Anna. Pleased to meet you.
Oh, hi. How are you? Yes,
I'm
good
good,
to meet you too. Sorry.
Yeah, we'd connected on Twitter, but the first time I've obviously spoke to you face to face. Well, sort of
Yes.
face to face via video. Anyway.
How's life in Western Australia, Anna?
It's a bit weird at the moment, actually,
Yeah.
because our borders were closed for nearly 2 years to the rest of the country and the rest of the world, and we've only recently opened up. We're sort of seeing this huge spike in COVID numbers that we haven't experienced.
Okay.
So we're in the midst of very big numbers, and I still teach part-time, so half the teaching staff is off school. We can't get relief teachers, student numbers are dwindling, so it's all a bit weird. We're experiencing probably what the rest of the world has already gone through and come through.
Yeah. So how's your COVID? How's the symptoms? Are people getting really ill, or are they just getting these cold flu-like symptoms like we tend to get now, and it's much easier? It's not a life and death situation as much. Are you finding the same as that?
Yeah, most people getting colds. A lot of people are reporting being very fatigued. We do have some people in hospital. We have had 6 die, I think, last week, even someone in their 40s. So it's a little bit scary. We've just had masks come off, but I'm still wearing mine. A lot of people are still wearing them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people wearing masks at hospitals when they're going for appointments, and doctors here. But as an example, I know in my local hospital last week, there was nobody in intensive care. We had no deaths last week at all. I think they had one isolated one the week before, but they've still got cases which are quite high, but nobody's life threatened by them. You know what I mean? So it's more like,
oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Well, that's good news for the UK, isn't it?
Yeah. And talking about things that are scary, you've got a brilliant back catalogue, 15 novels. That's like a wow, that's outstanding. Do us a favour, before we talk about your writing, tell us what you do outside of writing. You mentioned that you're teaching part-time. What do you do for fun? What's your hobbies?
What do I do for fun? I do like to read. I read quite a lot. I'm a huge film buff, so I like to watch films and documentaries and films of all kinds, even going back to the 1920s. Yeah. I love all film. I like going for walks. We've got 2 German shepherds, so we like going for walks in the bush. And what else do I do? I do love going out for lunch or out for dinner. I did that today, actually. And apart from that, I write and work.
What writers is it? Michael Connolly? I think I've seen another interview you've had with someone on YouTube. Michael Connolly, police detective type of things, or what genres do you read?
Mostly thrillers, all sorts of thrillers. I like police procedurals. I like Michael Connolly. I like Michael Rowbotham. Do you know of him? Joel Lachlan series.
Oh
yeah. He's great. I've started reading Linwood Barclay. He writes thrillers as well. I like Leon Moriarty. Have you heard of her? She wrote Big Little Lies and all of that sort of thing. Yeah. So I like male and female crime writers.
I remember, just going back a step, we're talking about Australia and the pandemic and that. Where you're based? What's your weather like? Is it severe? Do you have lots of I mean, everyone gets this impression of Australia, you've got deadly spiders and snakes everywhere. Is it like that, really? Is it just give us a bit of a backdrop of how you feel it is?
It's just become a little bit cooler about 3 weeks ago, but we did have a very severe summer. So I think we had 13 days over 40 degrees. And in between those, it would be 39, 38. So there was really no let up from the heat. It was very severe. I mean, we always have a very hot summer, but this, I think, is the worst that I can remember ever. And then when it rains here, it pours. It's torrential rain. It really is. But I mean, we need it. We're always grateful for it, but it's really torrential. I mean, roads we haven't had floods like Queensland, but our roads all get flooded, and it's all a bit crazy. But for spiders, yeah, spiders are a constant all the time. There are spiders, a lot of spiders. There's so many spiders.
Your novels, are they all set where you're from in Western Australia? Is that your
They're all set
location?
in Western Australia. Yeah. So I live in Perth, which is the capital city, and most of mine, some of them are set in Perth, but a lot are set down south of Western Australia. So if you go south, it gets cooler and there's more forests and hiking trails and beautiful rivers and beaches. If you go north, it gets hotter and a little bit more sandy and everything. So most of mine are set in the southwest and some in the city as well.
Okay. When you do your research for these books and you're saying some of them are based in the south, do you travel south to look at these places to do the research? Because I suppose that's a critical part, because if you get it wrong, you're going to get a reviewer or some critical person going to have a go and say, you've got the facts wrong there.
Exactly. No, I travel, we go down south and we go to wherever it is I'm writing about. Sometimes some towns that I write about are based on a real town, but a fictional town, just because I don't want to upset anyone. And they'll say, we didn't have all those murders. So my husband and I, we travel down south and I take a lot of photographs. If one of my books takes place, for example, on the Cape to Cape walking track, we walk part of the track. So I go and I take photos and I make notes and we have a good look around. I get a real feel for the place. And I feel like I need to see a place before I can write about it.
Yeah, you need to find a bit about the soul of the place and how it feels, and I suppose that then transfers into how you write your book on that particular area, and the characters. Yeah,
definitely. What they're doing, what the backdrop is like. So many things it impacts. I even look at what sort of trees there are in that area and all that sort of thing, to try and get it right. I mean, probably I make mistakes, but I do my best to get it as close to accurate as I can. And with The Family Man, which is the last one before this new book, it's a police procedural. So I had to spend a lot of time talking to, I have a very close friend who used to be a West Australian police detective. So I spend a lot of time talking to him and running everything past him and saying, does that sound accurate? Would they speak like that? What would they do next? Do they need a warrant for that? How would they word? So I try and make things as accurate as I can make them.
Yeah, because different states will have different bylaws, I would think, as well, do they? So you've got to be careful what you, what's
different
in Perth
states
may
have,
not.
Different police forces. I mean, we have federal police, but for state police, there are different police forces for each state, and they may do things. They're pretty similar, really, I would say. It's not like America. We're pretty similar and kind of mirror the UK, British justice system very closely.
Yeah.
But just for what's authentic in Western Australia might not be authentic in another state.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Your latest novel, Lost to the Lake, I started reading this morning. You don't mess around, do you? It's straight into the action. None of that, what as Salinger said, none of that David Copperfield crap. You're straight in there, jump in.
No.
It grabs you.
I like books that do that. When I was younger, I had no patience for books that, preamble for a long time before anything happens. I'm like, what's going to happen? Hit me with it.
Yeah, I got you. And this book is, correct me if I'm wrong, this only came out about 2 months ago. Was it released 2 months ago?
I think it was the 20th of March, I think, or maybe the 21st of March, yes.
Right, and your previous one before that was 1st of August. So you're writing a book every 6 months, do you find? Yeah, is that about average for you?
Yeah, that's about average. Yeah, procedural ones take me a little bit longer because I have so much fact checking. And there's so many dates and people to keep track of and times. If I'm writing about cold cases, so there's a lot to keep track of. So it takes me a bit longer.
Yeah, I think it varies. I find a lot of authors that I know personally, they tend to do one a year. They find that suits them better. But obviously, you know, everyone's different, and it depends on how much time you're putting into it. But yeah, it's just interesting to know and just find out different people have different methods and take longer or whatever. Yeah, yeah. Go on, Terry. You were going to say.
Sorry.
No, I was going to ask. Did you keep like a Bible? You're writing. If you got this massive output every 6 months, do you keep like a Bible, a notebook, you know, about the characters, the descriptions, the place names?
Yeah, I do. I have a sort of companion document for every novel where I keep all the names and descriptions and times and what happened. Yeah. So when I'm typing up my notes, I also bring up the notes on that novel so I can check things. Yeah. But then I also have another document, you know, a style guide, so I can keep an eye on, okay, I wrote it like this, yeah, and this is what I need to stick to, and various things that the stylistic things the publisher has asked me to do, so I can keep overarching doing those same things.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, an author, and she was in I don't know, 3/4 of the way through her book, and she started introducing a character into the book, and she realized after she'd finished a chapter that she'd killed this character off in the early part of the book, and she'd totally forgotten, despite having numerous notes. And you know, because you can have so many notes, and now it's still alive. That, yeah, I don't know, it must get so confusing at times. Have you ever experienced anything like that yourself?
It does. It gets so confusing. It can get so confusing. You really need to have something and keep track of it, but you can still start calling them by the wrong name part of the way through, spell their name differently. And sometimes I look at the dates and I think, no, that doesn't work. You're going to have to change all the dates in the book because that's not working. Yeah, it can get really confusing. And one of the things I like to try and do, I might not always get it right, is if I have a character whose name starts with A, I don't want another character whose name starts with A. Yeah. But then I think up names for characters and I'm halfway writing them and I'm like, no, that's not going to work. Everyone's name can't start with the same letter. It's going to be too confusing. So there's a lot to keep track of, really.
Anna, can I ask how you connected with your publisher, the book folks? Was that difficult? We're chatting with other writers. We hear horror stories, you know, people, they write, they send off submission, don't hear anything for 6 months, then maybe get a reply. And when they do finally get a reply, it takes the publisher a couple of years to get out. Was it a long journey for you to connect with this publisher?
Before I sent this book to my first book that he published to my publisher, I'd written a horror novel and I shopped it around a little bit and I had some rejections and some nice feedback, but it didn't go anywhere. And so I just set it aside and thought, okay, I'm going to write a thriller. And then I wrote this thriller, which was Backwoods Ripper. And I queried the book folks with it. And they were the first person I queried. And they came back to me and said, yep, they were interested and wanted me to send them the full book. So that was really good. Yeah. And so I sent them the full book. And I think they started working on it 3 or 4 months after they had the full book.
Have you always used the same publisher then for all your books, or have you used, or have you tried? Yeah, you have, and you find they work for you and they're quite loyal to you and they're good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm loyal to them. I have been contacted by other publishers who've asked me to write for them, but you know, I have had a meeting, but I haven't taken them up on it. I've decided to stick to the book folks. I'm happy where I am. It's working for me. So
yeah. But I suppose that's quite pleasing that you've had other publishers come to you rather than you have to go searching for them. Yeah.
I know, it's funny. You're sort of like, oh, I should say yes. But then when you think, you're like, well, I don't really want to say yes.
Oh, no, yeah, I get it totally. Yeah, you know, you do like to remain loyal to people who are good to you. It's as simple as. So based on that then, have you had any approaches from, I don't know, like Netflix TV companies on any of your books, or whether they want to produce it into a a series or a film or anything like that?
I have. Yeah, I have.
Brilliant.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah, over the last 12 months, I've had 3 approaches.
Wow.
I was approached by a filmmaker, writer, producer who makes a lot of films for Netflix about Dear Neighbor, and he asked for numbers. He wanted some numbers on sales, and he wanted a synopsis. He wanted a copy of the book, and that went back and forth for a while, but didn't come to anything. Then I was approached by a British agency that scouts books for clients for book to film and TV conversion, and they were interested in Pest, which was a horror novel that the book folks published for me. And so there was a discussion there, which didn't come to anything. I haven't heard back from them. And recently, quite recently, I was approached by an American book to film agency, Scout, who asked me lots of questions about another horror book, Beast, that I've had published, and also about a series, which was a nightmare series I wrote about the film rights being available for those books. And so they had a lot of questions. They seemed very enthusiastic, and they've said that they've passed it on to their client, and their client would be happy to hear it. But, you know, my daughter, who's a performer and a dancer, she said to me, in this industry, you could hear from them again tomorrow, you could hear in 6 months, you could never hear again. That's just the nature of it.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Yeah. The fact is they've been in touch is really promising, isn't it? I'd be really impressed with that, to be honest. Yeah, I was really pleased. Each time I'm really pleased about it. And my daughter always says to me, don't get your hopes up, Mum.
Oh, I think it's every writer's dream, isn't it, Anna, to get their work shown on the big screen.
It would be lovely.
Do you write that way? Do you write as though it's a film scene in your head? Is that how your imagination and your output works? You see it?
Yeah, definitely. I see it, I describe it, I feel it, I smell it. I can see it playing out in my mind, or how I want it to play out in my mind. And I think I do write in that way. And sometimes I have to pull back a bit from, don't write it like you're writing a scene to be filmed. Go back into writing it for the reader to enjoy.
Yeah.
And then do you find you have to modify your characters sometimes to fit your plot, or do you do it the other way around? I mean, and how do you write your book? Do you start with a basic idea of where it's going to finish, or you just let it flow as it comes into your mind and you write it down? Is it?
I usually get an idea and I think, oh, that's a really good idea for a book, but I don't do anything about it. I might just write that idea down. I don't do anything, and I wait, because I know if I wait and stop thinking about it, something will come to me, and then I'll be like, oh, and then that could happen. And then I'm sort of like, okay, now I can write it. But the characters, they always start, and I've got something in mind, but more often than not, it's sort of, I know it sounds silly, but the character takes me in a different direction than I thought I was going. It's almost like they're taking me where they want to go, and I just go with it.
Yeah,
it sounds crazy.
No, it doesn't actually. There's a lot of people
yeah.
say that to us. They say exactly that. The characters steer them. So yeah.
Take on a life of their own.
Yeah.
It does sound a bit insane when you tell people who are not writers, who have no experience. I think you're a bit schizophrenic or something. In my novel, I've got one of the characters. She comes into a bedroom in a scene. I'm thinking, hang on, what are you doing coming in? I had to go and walk in the garden for 10 minutes. It was a weird experience when the characters come alive. But the magic's happening then in your writing, I think, when they do take over.
Yeah, because you're really into it. You're having fun. Yeah.
Now, you write that your main genre, it's horror, thriller, psychological. What scares you in the middle of the night? What fears do you have? Similar to your characters' fears? Spiders?
It's embarrassing to tell you. No, not spiders. I'm not scared of spiders.
I am.
Are you?
Yeah. Well, I don't like them. I wouldn't run away. I'd let them outside the house. I'd pick them up on a bit of paper and put them in the garden.
That's what I do. I scoop them up because I just think they're just living their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
What scares? Yeah. I mean, my daughters freak out when I do that, and they're like, "Kill it!" But it's really embarrassing because I'm terrified of bears, and there are no bears except koala bears.
Like Dorothy in there, the Wizard of Oz, lions, tigers, and bears, but there isn't any in Australia. Weird.
There's only koala bears. No, I'm really scared of bears. They terrify me. Have you seen that movie, The Revenant?
Yeah.
With Leonardo
Yeah.
Oh my God, that
That's
terrifies me.
horrible.
We talk about heart pounding.
Yeah. I've read a description of that as though, well, put it in mild terms, as though the bear makes love to Leo DiCaprio.
Rough.
Exactly. Yeah. That's awful.
It's terrifying. And any American I meet, I always say, "Are there bears? Are there any bears near where you live?" Because I just don't know how people can live in a country where those enormous bears could come running out of the trees and kill you.
Oh dear. Did you have a strange teddy bear as a child? That's all.
No, I didn't have a teddy bear. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. You need that comfort.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So, what are you working on at the moment? You got a new book. You're penning, or you moving direction, or are you just going to continue on with your horror, crime thrillers?
I'm writing a new book at the moment, and it's another police procedural, so it might take me a little bit of time, and it involves the same characters, the same police detective and squad of detectives that were in The Family Man. So I had a lot of readers saying, I'd love to hear more about the main character was Veronica Pope. She was the detective in it. We'd love to see her again. So I sort of thought, well, if that's what people like, then why not? I like her too.
Most of your novels, are they all standalone? Or, well, as you've just mentioned, now you're going to build up a series using the same characters?
I have 3 that are a series. They're Small Town Nightmare, Cold Valley Nightmare, and Savage Bay Nightmare, and they're all about a journalist and a private investigator, and they're crime as well, crime thrillers, and they're a series. you can read them as a standalone. You don't have to read them as a series, but they're all linked by the same characters. And apart from that, they've all been standalone. And now I wrote The Family Man, and now I'm writing another one in that universe with those detectives. But it could be standalone. You don't have to read that one to read this one.
Okay.
What advice would you give to anyone who's thinking of taking up writing as a career? What would you say is the best thing to do? For example, go on writing courses, or I don't know, just take prolific notes, or what would be your advice to anyone who wants to write a book?
Everyone I meet who finds out that I write tells me that they have an idea for a book and that they'd like to write a book. And I always say to them, just write it, just write. And it doesn't matter if you don't know how to structure a book or you're not sure about the grammar and everything else, just write the whole thing, and then you can fix it. You can always fix something you've written, but if you don't start, if you've got nothing to work with, you can never fix it. Because you can always rewrite, have someone read it for you, help you with the style, help you with the structure. But while it's still in here, it's never going to happen. And it's a bit scary to write when you don't know how and you've never done it before. I remember when I wrote my first book, I had no idea if I was doing it correctly or what I was doing. But, you know, you're never going to get anywhere till you put it on paper.
Yeah, true enough. Fair enough.
I've no idea what the size of the market would be in Western Australia, but is it Europe, the UK, the USA? Is that the biggest market for you?
USA, I would say it's America, and followed by the UK. Some of my books have done quite well in Australia, but they seem to do a lot better in America and the UK than they do in Australia. And I don't know if it's because people want to read about exotic locations outside of where they live.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the books I read are set in America and the UK. So, I mean, I do read some that are set in Australia, but the majority are set in America and the UK. And I think perhaps other people are that way as well.
Okay. Can people buy your books? Where's the go-to market?
Amazon. They're all on Amazon, and Lost to the Lake has just come out on audio, so that's available as well. Okay.
I was going to ask what I've seen of your books, mostly paperback, hardback. Is there plans for the audio versions? Do you actually do any of the narration, or have you got like an actor producer coming in doing the narration?
The rights for 3 of them were bought by an audio production company in the US. And just recently, my publisher we've worked together looking at voice actors and everything. And he's produced this Lost to the Lake and one of my shorter works, which was Forgotten Crimes. So we've hired an Australian voice actress, Carla Kassane, who's narrated those 2, and they've just been produced, and Lost to the Lake has just come out. I don't know what his plans are for the rest of them. He did ask me to narrate, but it sounds really silly, but I tried when no one was around, and I can't read 3 of my own lines without stumbling over them, even though I wrote them myself. So I knew it was going to be a long, hard road if I did it.
You've done the hard work. You've done the writing bit, which is there, for someone to work on. So you've done your
I'm
part.
a teacher. I read stories to people for a living, and I can't. I'm still stumbling over one line, and I'm sort of like, and I had to say to him, it's really going to affect the writing if I'm doing this because it will take me a long time.
Yeah, well, it must take a long time to narrate a book, mustn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
It must be a lot of hard work.
Yeah,
I've read that it takes something like 10 hours of production time to get 1 hour of
really
the proper audio out there.
Wow.
And your average book, there's roughly about 6 hours. I think yours are around about 300 pages each, about 80,000 word mark. So you're looking at maybe 8 hours of audio.
Yeah, I think Lost to the Lake, I had to sit and listen to 7 hours of audio, listening for any errors, because I suppose I'm the best person who can do it without following along on the book. Yeah. Oh gosh, to get 1 hour out, it must be really hard. I couldn't get one line out.
Yeah. So just going back a bit, I don't think I asked about this before. So what is your routine about writing? Do you have a set time of the day, or of a night? Do you prefer doing it at night when it's quiet, or does it just come to you and you write it there and then? So how do you find it best?
I usually write at night. I'm more of a night person than a day person. So I usually write in the night. And over the last probably 4 years, I've become in the habit of writing longhand. I like writing in a notebook, and then I transcribe it the next day or type it up. But then when I'm writing a book and I'm quite far into it and it's getting to the middle, coming to the pointy end, I'll write in the day and the afternoon as well, because more things start coming a lot quicker and I have to get them down. And towards the end, probably the last 10,000 words, you know, I'm on and off the computer for the whole day and the evening writing. And that's usually when I lose my ability to think about anything else. And I can't even remember the word like door when I'm talking to people. And I'm trying to get in other people's cars at the shopping centre when I come out of the shops. I do that because I'm in another world.
Yeah. Tunnel vision.
I suppose that gets even more difficult when you've got your publisher coming back to you with a deadline date, and you've got to then edit it or whatever and get it back to him. You can't think quick enough, can you, to get it onto paper? Yeah.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good about that, and he just asks for updates. You know, how much longer? You said by this time, and then I'm like, just a little bit late. It'll be a little bit longer, a little bit. You know, I want to get it perfect. So yeah, and it's sort of like at the end the speed picks up in my mind, and it just picks up speed itself and goes faster and faster, and I have to do it and I have to get it finished.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Nice one.
Yeah, and I think our time's actually run out, but it's been an absolute delight chatting with you. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
thank you very much. Thank you. It was lovely. I really enjoyed it. I love your accents. They're gorgeous.
Oh, good. Thanks for that.
Scousers, yeah, Liverpudlians.